You are tuned in to another edition of Americana Music Profiles, brought to you by Americana Rhythm Music Magazine and AmericanaMusicMagazine.com. I'm your host, Greg Tutwiler. Let's jump right in to the next exciting interview. New Hampshire native singer-songwriter Rick Lang has written over 70 songs, many of which have been recorded by other artists in the bluegrass, Southern gospel, and even jazz music industries. Rick is also a freelance writer, conducts songwriting workshops, and currently chairs the IBMA Songwriter Committee as a mentor for the IBMA Songwriting Mentor Program. In this next edition of Americana Music Profiles, Rick and I talk about life, his music, and his latest record, The Undertow. Hi, Rick. Welcome to the podcast this afternoon.
Great to be with you, Greg, and thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. You're in New Hampshire, right?
I am. About 30 minutes from the seacoast.
Yeah.
Right here on the small but beautiful New Hampshire coastline.
Okay, cool. Well, we were talking offline a minute ago, and it's where you're talking to me from is an office on a lumber yard, and although that has nothing to do with music, it kind of struck me that there's a bit of a tie-in because of the type of work that you do with the lumber. Give me just a quick story about what that's about and what you do with the wood.
Sure thing. My lifelong career has been in the hardwood lumber industry, and I started way back in 1970, and my wife and I started our own business back in 1986, and have been going ever since. And we supply high-end hardwoods to the woodworking trade in our region, which includes high-end kitchen cabinet makers, custom woodworkers, furniture makers, architectural millwork companies, and anybody who uses high-end hardwoods for manufacture of any product, like hardwoods like cherry and black walnut and maple and birch, and specialty woods too, like curly maple, for instruments and stuff like that,
right,
and
yeah.
bird's eye maple.
Yeah. I would one of the things that you're known for is songwriting, and I have this image that doing what you do, working with the different woods, would lend itself potentially to some songwriting ideas. Is that true?
It is true, and songwriting to me is a very organic experience. And working with hardwoods in a natural resource like hardwood lumber is very organic.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of my early part of my career in the woods, working at sawmills and working at the woods, marking timber. And it just seemed like a really nice combination of the music and songwriting in my work in the hardwood industry just seem very compatible, and they feed off each other and somehow seem to complement each other.
Which came first, the interest in music and a music career, or the hardwood work that you do?
Well, I've always loved music, but I would say the hardwood career in hardwoods really came first. And once I get into the mid 80s, when I stumbled upon bluegrass music for the first time, and like so many people, get totally captivated by it. My interest and passion for songwriting and playing music started, and it grew over a period of time for the last 30 years or so, right along with my passion for the hardwood business. So they both have grown and evolved at the same time, and I spend most of my time in my life either doing one or the other, and I just go back and forth, and I feel very, very fortunate to have a life to where the two central parts of it are things that I absolutely love and have a passion for.
That's cool.
So very, very blessed.
Now, you used the word stumble. Tell me what that meant for you. How did you discover music and bluegrass music for yourself?
Well, I grew up in the 60s, and the first music that I that caught my interest was early soul music and early R&B music of the late 50s and early 60s, going on to like early rock and roll and Motown music, and some contemporary folk rock music like the Byrds and bands like that. But then in the 80s, I kind of lost interest in a lot of music because it had changed, and I was listening to a Byrds album one time when Clarence White had joined the band, and I was captivated by his playing and studied his background and found out he was a bluegrasser and was renowned in the bluegrass world. So I went out and got some of the records of the early Kentucky Colonels he was part of. Okay. And when I heard it, I was so blown away. Yeah. It was just such awesome music. I just fell right into it, and then started listening to other bluegrass records and just jumping in. And ever since then, that's the music that's really kind of moved me. Yeah.
Were you a player of an instrument before you discovered this music that you enjoyed, or did that lead you to become a player?
Well, I had been playing guitar ever since childhood. Okay. And I would play. I remember when I was younger, learning early Everly Brothers music and some music from the late 50s to early 60s, and playing contemporary folk music and stuff like that. So I'd always played guitar. And when I stumbled upon bluegrass, I realized this is a whole new challenge to learn how to play really good bluegrass rhythm guitar, and found it very challenging, and it inspired me to work at it more and learn how to play guitar so I could accompany songs that I liked. And then I found as I get into songwriting, I would have to kind of learn more on the guitar if I was going to use that as a writing tool to be able to write in different settings. So if I'm writing a sad song, I could play some sort of music that went along with the storyline. So I tried to expand on my guitar playing so I could, it would help my songwriting, and have been doing that ever since.
What part of this music inspired you to move into the songwriting side of it?
Well, that's an easy one. I think it was in the mid to late 80s when I started listening to bluegrass music. That's when a lot of, I think you'd call second generation bands were becoming very popular, like the Bluegrass Cardinals. And Doyle Lawson's first band of his own came into being with Doyle Lawson Quicksilver, and Virginia Squires were out there, and a few other ones. And as I listened to the music, I liked a lot of the songs. So when I found a song I really fell in love with, I would find out who wrote the song, and then found out a lot of these songs were written by people like Pete Goebel and Randall Hilton. And somehow I just was captivated by the songs that they wrote, and started studying the writers and looked for other songs that they had written, and decided I'd like to write songs like that. And I actually reached out after I get started writing, really, really working hard at writing. After 2 or 3 years, I actually reached out to Randall Hilton, who I didn't know and didn't know me, and found his address and wrote him a letter and said, I want to learn how to be a writer, and would you give me some tips and listen to some of my songs? And through the mail, I would send him tapes of my songs, and he would write these really encouraging letters, giving me some ideas how to make them better, and we became pen pals. And that's kind of how it started.
Cool. Yeah, okay. And this has obviously been something that's really kind of been centerpiece for you, to the point that if I read the notes correctly on your biography, you're also currently the IBMA Songwriting Committee Chair and a mentor for the IBMA Songwriting Mentor Program. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. I feel very fortunate to be part of that. The IBMA has among its other parts of it that are really a value to the constituency. Songwriter Committee has even grown and become, and really offered more to the songwriting community over the years. And I've been on there 7 or 8 years ago and was a member and tried to contribute. And I think this is my third term on there, and I was asked to be chair of the committee, and I found it very rewarding because I get a chance to interact with and connect with other writers, and organize things for our annual World of Bluegrass event in fall that feature kind of songwriting activities, songwriting seminars, and songwriting workshops. And I just enjoy that a lot. So I become involved and found it's just something I really like a lot and hope to do for a long time.
And you're actually teaching songwriting workshops as well, too, right?
Yes, I do. It's some of the New England Bluegrass festivals up here. Over the years, I've taught workshops, like at the Joe Val annual Bluegrass Indoor Festival that they have in February. I've taught workshops there. And at Thomas Point Beach up in Maine, I've taught workshops there. And I get asked to do that from time to time, and found it's very rewarding. And again, it's a chance to kind of hang out and interact with other writers. So I like doing that.
I know this is probably a bit subjective, but what do you see as the difference, if there is one? At least it feels for me, I can kind of hear it. A difference between bluegrass music that is kind of written and performed in the northern part of the country where you're from, compared to the kind of bluegrass music that is written, originates, performed in the kind of the southern part of the United States, geographically at least, for, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, kind of geographically. Can you hear the difference? What does it feel like the difference is for you?
I think there is a big difference in when listeners hear songs written and performed by, people who are, from this part of the country. We have kind of our own dialect and our own style and our own influences. And I think, down in the Appalachian areas, a lot of their influences of people who write and perform are just very different than those up here. And I think that those influences handed down from generation to generation just create a whole different sound. So I found when I started writing songs, for the bluegrass music world, a lot of my songs were sounding like a kind of northern type sounding songs based on my influences of like folk music in New England and people that I've listened to over the years.
Right.
But then I found, as I think from the 80s on, most of the music that I was listening to after that was real deal bluegrass music.
Yeah.
First and second generation bands.
Right.
And I think I listened to it so much, it changed, it kind of influenced my songwriting to where I was writing gospel sounds that sound like it was written from somebody from Kentucky as opposed to someone from New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And and